Sponsored by Friends of Life Outreach International.
The broken and the hurting and the outsider can be blessed. It can actually live flourishing because the kingdom of heaven has come. It's not just a transactional, okay, I can physically heal you. But it's I have come for so much more than that.
Yes.
I want to give you peace.
Yes.
I want to take shame off of your life. I want to restore your heart to wholeness.
Yes.
Journey through the mind, heart, and work of Jesus with Kelly Minter. Next on Life Today.
Welcome to Life Today. I'm Randy Robinson. Tammy Trent is with me. And Tammy, gosh, such a good program with Kelly.
Yes.
We're talking to Kelly Minter again today. She's got a book called The Blessed Life. And this, I know this is going to bless you. So we're excited you're here. And Kelly, we're thrilled to have you back. There's so much to talk about.
There is, and I'm so excited. I thank you so much.
Okay,
I love being here.
I'm going to kind of jump right into this.
Okay.
So people just hang on. But I have this theory about blessings and getting into the blessings, because you talk about don't just be a hearer, but be a doer.
Yes.
Right? Yes. So my question is, do we need to be sort of perfected? Do we need to work ourselves up to a level so now I can actually do the things Jesus wants me to because I've cleaned up my act enough? Or does he perfect us in the process of obedience?
Yeah, well, I think he perfects us in the process of obedience. Even it says that Jesus learned obedience through the things that he suffered. So I think there's, not that Jesus needed to be sanctified, but clearly there's a sanctification process for us. And so many of the people, when Jesus talked about being not just a hearer, but a doer, so many of those people were brand new.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus is just now announcing the kingdom. So I think we can safely say that the people in the crowd that were following him were not people that had this long, they didn't have seminary degrees. So they're following him. But it's so great because after Jesus talks about being a doer, he comes down the mountain. And what happens, he walks right into a sea of broken humanity. And Matthew gives us 10 pictures of different people that he encounters when he comes off the mountain. And Jesus begins to do the things that he has just talked about. And we, at the end of that, I don't want to give that away, but at the end of those 10 miracles, Jesus turns to his disciples and says, hey, the harvest field is huge, and it's ripe, and it's ready. And you all are the ones that are to go now and to go out into that harvest field. And you have to ask yourself, well, what harvest field? Well, the one that he just walked through. And Matthew puts 3 sets of 3 miracles together for us. Now, there's actually 10 miracles. For those of you math people, 3 sets of 3 is 9, not 10. But 2 of the miracles are kind of blended together. And so that's where you kind of get that 10th. But there's a strategy to how Matthew puts it together. And what I love it gets me so excited because at the end of chapter 4, right before the Sermon on the Mount, and at the end of chapter 9, right after the miracles, Matthew says that Jesus went around teaching in the synagogues, preaching the good news of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and disease. Well, he says it twice. And it's not because he forgot that he said it back here in chapter 4. It's a literary device called an inclusio. So what Matthew's doing is he's packaging. He's like, okay, I said this, that he was a teacher and a healer. Now I'm showing you both of these things in between, which tells us that Jesus' teachings and his miracles are supposed to be sort of consumed, digested together. What we see Jesus teach, we go see him do. And right when he gets off that mountain, we see Matthew put these 3 miracles together, the first 3, and they're some of my very favorites.
Can we talk about what those miracles are?
Well, I would love to, but I get excited about it because they're not in chronological order.
Okay.
And I used to read the Gospels and I'm like, okay, Jesus went here and he did this and then he went here and he did that. And some of it's chronological, but in Matthew's case, what he did for the first 3 is he took 3 outcasts, 3 stories of 3 different types of outcasts, and he put them together because he wanted us to see something about Jesus' character and his compassionate nature. And so the very first outcast is this leper, and he's a Jewish man. So he's a religious insider, but he is a physical outcast because of his leprosy. and he's not clean. He can't go into the temple. He's cut off from society. So it's not just about the physical sickness. He's isolated, which is so hard.
Wow.
And so he comes to Jesus. Jesus touches him, which would technically make Jesus ceremonially unclean because you weren't supposed to touch a leper, right? But he touches him because he loves this leper. So that's one outcast. Then what happens? A Roman centurion. Well, the Romans, they were the bad guys. Like nobody wants to like or do anything good for the Romans. They're occupied.
The oppressors.
Yes, they're the oppressors. They've occupied Israel. It's like, no. And so here comes this Roman centurion that probably, if we were there that day, we'd be like, okay, Jesus, you're not going to help him, right? Because, I mean, he's our enemy, kind of. And his servant is dying. So now we see that he's an ethnic outsider. And Jesus is like, just believe. And this man has incredible faith. In fact, Jesus even highlights his faith. He's like, I haven't seen faith like this in all of Israel. Wow. It's amazing to Jesus.
Wow.
Then, a gender outcast. He goes in to heal Peter's mother-in-law, who, as a woman, in most, traditional Jewish society, it's like a rabbi wouldn't go touch the hand of a woman. And so then we see this, he heals her and she begins to serve. But the word serve there is really indicative of discipleship. It's how it's used later in discipleship. So we don't know if it's just her serving Jesus and those around, or if it's really her first day of becoming a follower of Christ.
Interesting.
Wow.
So these three outcasts. And I used to read them just missing all of that, thinking, well, he healed the leper, he healed the servant, he healed Peter's mother. Okay, great, Jesus has power to heal. But there's so much more that's going on, because Matthew's beginning to also tip his hat to Jesus is coming for all people, even the outsider of the Roman centurion. It's not the people that we thought he was going to come for.
Wow.
And so I love that for anybody who feels outside, who doesn't feel like they're cleaned up enough, who doesn't feel like they fit, who always feels on the outside of religious tradition. And we see, well, okay, Jesus comes, he says that he's the fulfillment of the law, he teaches what it means to live in the kingdom, and then he comes in and he begins to do something really different. And we see this incredible compassion spilling out of Jesus. And those are just the first three. So I get so excited. I still get excited talking about it.
So what does that, how does that tie into being blessed? Jesus did these great things for outsiders, for people that were hated, for people that were unclean, for people that were helpless. What does that say about today living in the blessed life, do you think?
Well, I think for starters, the broken and the hurting and the outsider can be blessed. It can actually live flourishing because the kingdom of heaven has come.
The ones who don't feel blessed and don't think that God wants to bless them, you're saying, no,
yes,
he just demonstrated that.
You're actually in prime position, I think, to experience the blessings of the kingdom. Because so often the blessings of our culture are what get in the way of the true blessings. I'll be the first person to admit that. These aren't bad things, by the way.
Right.
God does use these to bless, but sometimes the things that we want get in the way of the blessings that Jesus wants to bring us. But I also think there's another blessing that comes along with that, is that when we get to give and when we get to love the way that Jesus has called us to love, outsiders and insiders, there's blessing in that, which he gets to later when he gets to the harvest field. But it's kind of getting ahead of some of that.
Well, one more point you do make that I do want to bring out, because I kind of started with it when I talk about being perfected along the way, right? You say that healing is cleansing.
In the leper's case.
Well, and I think a lot of people, they feel like they're too dirty or they're cursed because they've made mistakes, and you're saying, no, when God comes in, I see this beautiful, not just a healing, but now you're made whole. You're no longer an outcast from the good people, the temple. Right.
Yes, because the leper then gets to go into the temple. Yeah. He says, go show yourself. To Moses. And so, there is, and it's not just even a physical healing, that when we come to Christ for salvation, there is a cleansing. And I love that you said that, because if you get further down into the miracles, near the end in chapter 9, there's the woman who comes with the issue of blood. And so she's been bleeding for 12 years. And that's another one of those, it's not just a physical problem, it also would make you ceremonially unclean in Jewish culture. So she's got this isolation problem. She has a huge shame problem. It's very unlikely that she would have been married in that condition. Her husband probably would have divorced her, or if she had that condition when she was of marriage age, she wouldn't have gotten married because you wouldn't have been able to bear children in that. So there's a lot there.
Yeah.
So she comes, and this is always just so fascinating to me, especially the way Luke says it. Jesus is on his way to heal Jairus' daughter. He's moving through the crowds. She gets the end of his garment. Immediately she's healed. So in her mind, if I'm her anyhow, I got what I came for. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be called out. I don't want anybody to talk about this. I just want to get healed. I just want to get better. I got it. So now I'm going to back out of here. Jesus doesn't even have to stop. It's the most efficient miracle on planet Earth because he can go to, he's got to get to Jairus' daughter.
Yeah.
Jesus stops. And whenever I read that, I'm like, if I'm Jairus, I'm freaking out right now. Like, Jesus, do not stop and ask who touched me. Are you kidding?
In a crowd.
Who in a crowd?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, just can you get to my daughter? And who cares at this point? She's healed, right? But I really believe that Jesus, that woman had come for too little. And he was not going to let her come for just what she wanted, which was healing. That was done. That piece was done. But Jesus wasn't done. And so what does he do? He's like, okay, who touched me? Let's talk. She has to come out, explain in front of everybody. It looks like it's going to be public shaming, but it's absolutely not. It's public restoration. And then he says, daughter, I don't want to misquote, but it's something along the lines of, your faith has saved you. Like, go in peace. And so to your point, there's a cleansing there. And I think her shame, he removes the shame off of her.
Oh, yeah.
Because had Jairus' daughter not been tied into that story, you would think, well, that's nice of Jesus to stop. But he really shouldn't have stopped from a human standpoint.
Right.
You've got a 12-year-old that's dying. Right. But the fact that he does, to me, elevates that Jesus, it's not just a transactional, okay, I can physically heal you. But it's I have come for so much more than that.
Yes.
I want to give you peace.
Yes.
I want to take shame off of your life. I want to restore your heart to wholeness. It's exciting.
So much more. I love that he's a God of increase in our lives. It's just so much more.
Yes.
Okay, Kelly, I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
You say you love the practical application and call of these last few days. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Well, so at the very end of the devotional, as you go through the 90 days, you go through the teachings, you go through the miracles, and at the very end, that's when Jesus turns to his disciples and he says, okay, everybody, I have so much compassion over these crowds because they're harassed, they're distressed, and they have no shepherd. They're like sheep without a shepherd. I'll just stop there. In our current culture, we look around and we see people just without hope, not knowing where to turn, like one without a shepherd. Just, okay, social media, what's the news saying? What is the self-help book saying? What is that? Bouncing all over the place, struggling without hope. And so Jesus turns to his disciples and he says, pray that the Lord of the harvest will send people into the harvest field. And there's a great scholar, Stanley Hauerwas, and he says, isn't it amazing that the disciples pray that prayer and it turns out that they are the answer to the prayer. They are the ones that are to go. And I think when I was growing up and I heard harvest field, I thought, okay, missionaries in Africa, missionaries in China, and it is that. But when I studied the 10 miracles, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, the harvest field is just the broken people all around me that I am going to encounter. And it's not going to be flashy, and it's going to be inconvenient sometimes, and it's going to be the person on the plane, it's going to be the neighbor coming by at the wrong time, it's going to be the cashier at the grocery store, it's going to be a hard situation in my church. And that's the harvest field. And we're called to it. And I love it. He says, and it's ripe. And I think a lot of times we go, well, the harvest field, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like there's much of a harvest out there. Jesus is like, no, the harvest field is always crushing.
Yes,
the harvest field is like ready to go.
Yes.
We don't have a harvest problem. We have a labor problem.
That's
we
good.
We have
yes.
a God's people shortage kind of, being out there. So that's why the final few days of the devotion, it's like everything Jesus turns around and he's like, okay, now everything that you've seen me teach and do, now I'm calling you.
Go do it.
Yeah.
Go do it.
Yes.
I totally agree with you that the harvest is ripe.
Yeah.
And he's calling us to take action, to be the light.
Yes.
And we do see that, Kelly, all around us. There's so much tragedy every day. And to have been a change somehow, I mean, it's the hopelessness, the lost, the identity and who people are. It's the mental health issues right now. There's so much broken in the world. So yeah, there's harvest all around us. We just need to keep our eyes open as followers of Christ and look for those opportunities.
Yes. Yes.
I love that that's at the end of your book, because you've set us all up to like go out and be courageous in that.
One more point I want to follow up with, because I find this very interesting, because we talk about the law, and you referenced these people not being able to be in the temple. They were unclean according to Jewish tradition. And yes, that's true, but it was also according to the Old Testament law.
Yes.
God's law.
Yes.
And I do think when Jesus came in and he said, no, you just get to me, I'm the fulfillment of the law, okay? I can cleanse you.
That's right.
And then you can go tell people about me. Because he has the authority to do that.
Yes.
No one else did.
That's right.
Right?
That's right, yes.
I think a lot of times we can get hung up and say, you know, I'd really love to go into the fields, starting at my own front door. I'd love to talk to my neighbor, but I feel like I'm not worthy, I'm not cleansed, I'm not good enough. We have to get rid of that thought. We have to know if we come to Jesus, we just touch the hem of his garment.
Yes, yes.
He's gonna cleanse us, he's gonna heal us, and then he's gonna call us out. And send us.
Yes.
That to me is getting over that and stepping into it is the first step to that blessed life.
Yes. Yeah. Well, right in the middle of all those miracles, right in the almost dead center, when Jesus goes across to the Gadarenes, and it's a Gentile region, and they're the men who are demon possessed, and I'm sure the disciples are like, why are you taking us here? We're Jewish people. There's 2,000 pigs. There are tombs. We can't get around those. And there's demon-possessed people. Like, this is all on the no can do for us list, you know? So Jesus casts out the demon into the pigs. All that happens. Well, that man, afterwards, he's whole. He's free. He says, Jesus, I want to go with you. I want to go. He's fresh, like fresh, you know, as far as being cleansed. And Jesus goes, no, actually what I want you to do is I want you to stay here, and I want you to tell people what I've done for you. And a lot of scholars say that he actually, before Paul, is truly the first Gentile missionary to the Gentiles.
Yeah, sure.
And so what you're saying, Randy, is like, I agree. I think we do need to know the Word. We need to study the Word. And we do need to take seriously the things of Jesus. But nobody has it perfect, and nobody has all the right answers. And so really what we need to do is just tell people what Jesus has done in our lives.
Yes, yes.
And the message of his gospel.
Exactly.
And when we do that, and I've kind of that's the one way I've like kind of gotten over, like, okay, I got to hit all these. It's like, hey, listen, these are all the areas of brokenness and where I've struggled in my own sin. And I know I can't get there without Jesus.
That's right.
And he has gotten there for me through his death and on the cross and his resurrection, and sometimes just simple. And so, but yeah, none of us will ever have it all cleaned up.
No,
right?
what he's done for us is enough.
Yes.
Like, I'm not going to be perfect.
That's right.
I'm never going to get it right.
There you
so
go.
if I wait to get it right, I'm going to miss a whole lot of opportunities. What Jesus did for us is enough for me to step out in authority and confidence, and all confidence, even in my own weakness, in my own lack of knowledge of even the word or what to pray, what to say. Step out in it with all authority, because Jesus is enough.
That's right. See,
you're getting her
there
fired
you go.
up.
I know. It's like, yes, this is exactly right. And look, when Jesus calls those disciples to the harvest field, Peter's going to deny him shortly after that. They're not the disciples. This is early on in the game for them. They are not a perfected group when he calls them to the harvest field. None of us are.
That's right.
But you're right. He
is everything, and he's enough.
Yes, yes.
So good. All right.
Yes.
I want to get you fired up, too. We want to send you Kelly Minter's book, The Blessed Life. When you take a little bit of a step out into the field where there are some hurting people, and you are God's love in action to them. Watch this, and you'll see how.
We're here in a malnutrition clinic in Pibo, South Sudan, and you're going to see as we walk through just how many mothers there are here.
In sub-Saharan Africa, the death rate for children under 5 is the highest in the world, and the majority of those deaths are due to the complications of malnutrition.
Their children all suffering from malnutrition. They brought them here to be screened. But what you're going to see as we keep walking is that out from our center here, it just keeps going. The mothers literally are overflowing out of here, and they're going all the way down. They're going around the corner. We've had to use another room to be able to actually put mothers in. And when we consulted with these mothers and we started asking mothers whether they, what the condition of their children is, have they lost children? More than 25% of the mothers here said that they had lost at least one child to malnutrition or a lack of food.
In South Sudan, malnourishment clinics are overcrowded because of the fact villages have no food.
You see, this is what mission feeding is all about. Mission feeding is about bringing highly nutritious food, life-saving food to mothers and children like this, to be able to ensure that these mothers don't bury their children anymore, that these children don't lose their lives, that we are able to truly express God's heart by extending His hands and giving these children the life-giving food that they so desperately need. We have to continue these programs. We have to even increase what we're doing here. We need that lifeline, that pipeline of food. We need mission feeding to continue to save lives here each and every day.
Mission feeding truly is a lifeline, tying every one of these children to hope, to Jesus, to life. We do have to continue. It's hard work. I know it's a tough ask all the time, but I know that it's making a difference. Whatever gift you're able to give, it's making a massive impact. You must know that the rewards are going to be so great for all of us, just to know that we have partnered with such a ministry in some way to make a difference in the lives of people that just, they don't know where their next meal is going to come from. I'm asking you today if you would consider being a part of this with us, to continue bringing more increase and being more of a lifeline. I know that it'll make a difference. We need you today.
Here's what it takes. $30 will feed 3 children for the next 3 months. $50 will feed 5 children for the next 3 months. A gift of $100 would actually help feed 10 children. And if you can give a gift of $1,000, what a difference you would make in the lives of 100 children. Now, how does that work? You know, Tammy, the pictures that we saw from South Sudan, those are some of the most difficult.
Yes.
Because you're dealing, yes, they've had some floods up there, which you can't grow anything when the ground's being swept away. Yeah. They've also had some situations where there's a lot of displacement.
Yeah, that's right.
Very different from what you've seen in, say, Angola, where you're looking at droughts oftentimes, sicknesses that come through and prevent someone from working in the field for 4 or 5 days, which can be devastating. But the consistent thing we're seeing is that when there are people who are self-sufficient, something happens. Something breaks their normal cycle. And it doesn't take long to throw a child into a state of malnutrition, to starvation, and then to death. Mission feeding comes into that emergency situation, whether it's a mobile clinic sometimes, or coming in and just feeding at schools so children will get a meal as they get an education. It's about meeting the practical needs of people who need it the most. They don't have systems in their countries, that safety net that we have much in the West. We are their safety net. You are their safety net. And it's been ongoing for a couple of decades now, almost like 30 years since we started partnering with Victorious. And we have made great strides over those years. We've established ourselves in many countries so that we can come to you and say, for the very, very efficient, low cost of a few dollars, we can help save lives. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that hasn't changed is our dependence on you, the viewer. Tammy, the reality is, the more people that come together, the more children we can feed, and we have to have the support of the viewers.
We do, and that's why we're coming to you again today. We do need you. We want to increase the food that we're bringing into these villages. We want to save every child if it's possible. But we do need you, and we need your help. If you would go online today or make a call and make the best gift you possibly can, I promise you it won't be in vain. And when you do that, we want to send you this book today, The Blessed Life. Because as you are a blessing, we want to also be a blessing to you. Go online or make a phone call and make truly the best gift you possibly can. It will make an enormous difference. Thank you.
Across the continent of Africa, children are suffering, facing severe malnutrition and even death. With food reserves gone and many areas experiencing severe famine, we urgently need to replenish supplies to keep feeding the 350,000 children who are counting on us. Through Life's Mission Feeding Outreach, your gift of love can be an answer to prayer for a hurting and hungry child in their time of need. Call now with your life-saving gift of $30, $50, or $100 to help feed and care for 3, 5, or 10 children for 3 full months. With your gift of any amount, we'll send you 365 days of courage. Filled with scriptures and words of encouragement, this daily devotional will give you the confidence that comes from knowing how God sees you. Take courage in Christ's love and be ready to conquer each day. With your gift of $100 or more, please request the Blessing Framed Art. This beautiful wall art will grace your home or office and serve as a daily reminder of God's blessing and kindness over your family. Finally, with your gift of $1,000 or more to help feed and care for 100 children, be sure to request our inspiring bronze sculpture, Consider the Birds, inspired by Jesus' words in Matthew 6:26. Please call, write, or make your gift online today.
Please do go online or go to the phone right now. Make the best gift you can. You can be a blessing in someone's life, and it is urgent. We need to do it today. When you do, you can request Kelly Minter's book, The Blessed Life. And by the way, if you missed the other program with her, all of our programs are at lifetoday.org. Kelly, this has been such a blessing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing with our audience.
Thank you. I've loved being here. And I just hope everyone will go to Matthew's Gospel and just take a journey through Matthew chapter 5 through 9. Ask the Lord to speak to you, and I know it will be an encouragement for you.
We appreciate you so much. Thanks for being here, and thank you for watching. Go take that journey today, and we'll see you next time on Life Today.
Born into a broken home, born into poverty, graduate from Harvard Law School, go on to practice law for 15 years.
E.W. Jackson next week. Life Today is made possible by the supporters of Life Outreach International. Your gift will be used exclusively for the exempt purposes of life. The ministry features specific outreaches as examples of the programs it supports and conducts. Gifts are considered to be without restriction as to use unless explicitly stipulated by the donor. The ministry is a member of the ECF